Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to East Central Missouri and the world, and welcome to the James Strong Show podcast number 240. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for making us a part of your day. I appreciate it. This podcast was recorded on the evening of Monday, October the 25th, from the James Strong Studio in Western St. Charles County. It's been a little bit since I did a podcast, but I haven't been slacking, so don't worry. Been busy having lots of fun. The trophy wife and I decided to take some time off, and we went on vacation. We went out west to spend some time in Colorado. I'd never been to Colorado. Let me take it back. I've flown through Denver many times. I used to have business years ago in Golden, Colorado with the Coors Company, the ceramics people, not the beer people. But outside of business and just passing through, I never had spent much time in Colorado. I have now. And for those of you that never have, it's beautiful. It's unbelievably beautiful. And to those of you that have spent time in Colorado, you're thinking to yourself, why did it take you so long, Strong? It's a wonderful place. It's a beautiful place. And I will give you the details of the vacation that the trophy wife and I took to Colorado after we go through a few updates on the news and other things that are going on. First of all, a Jaguar update. For weeks now, I've basically said, not a whole lot going on. Well, there is a whole lot going on now. The Jaguar has been media blasted. It's been sealed in epoxy. About 70% of the sheet metal work is complete. It needed a bit more work than we thought it would. After the car was sandblasted, Swiss cheese appeared. Okay. So what we thought was maybe nice, firm sheet metal was not so much. In fact, the sunroof had to be totally replaced. The hood had to be replaced just because it was in bad shape. It was dented. It was just beat up. It was very rusty and beat up and dented, mainly because for the 55 years it sat in my father's garage, many of those years my brothers and I climbed on it. So some of that is my own doing, but it's being worked on still. On my end, we're still cleaning up parts and just getting stuff ready to put that thing back together. I asked for an ETA as to when I'd get the car back. And all they did is look at me and they said, not this year, so stay tuned. Also in the news, anybody who's rented cars recently know that it's tough to get cars at the at the rental car facilities. It's tough to buy cars because of the microchip shortage. Well, Hertz just placed an order with Tesla for 100,000 Tesla Model 3s. 100,000 of them. They're going to be delivered by the end of 2022 for a cost of $4.2 billion, 42 grand a car. Normally, the rental car companies get discounts. Tesla doesn't give discounts, so they paid full price, 42 grand a car. Tesla stock was up today 12.66%. Elon Musk is worth an extra $14 billion. Now, here's what I don't get. And again, this is the part of finance I don't understand, the part of finance I'm trying to figure out. You sold 4.2, your company, not you, your company sold $4.2 billion worth of cars. You haven't built them yet, but you sold them. And now the guy who's the main shareholder is worth an extra $14 billion. Okay. Maybe that's where I am, and Elon Musk is where he is because he gets it and I don't. But Elon Musk is now worth over $250 billion. Not that long ago when Bill Gates was the richest guy in the world, he and Warren Buffett were going back and forth. They were worth between $7 and $8 billion, which, by the way, I read countless articles that say there's no way in the world you can spend $1 billion in your lifetime. unless you buy islands or something like that. But yeah, $250 billion, $250 billion. That's what he's worth. I guess it's because, well, let's face it, electric cars, they are the future. They absolutely are. As much as I don't want to say I dislike them, but there's something nostalgic about the internal combustion engine. They sound cool and they go down the road. You get to tinker with them. They're not all alike. They're all a little bit different. Not as much now as they used to be, but they're still a bit different. A Volkswagen Beetle is different from a Corvette, okay? They just are. With an electric car, though, they're basically about the same. But here's why the electric cars are the future. And it has very little to do with emissions, although that's part of it. It has very little to do with the fact that younger people kind of think they're cool and hip, but that has something to do with it. The main reason is they're a lot cheaper to make. Do you know some electric car powertrains have 17 parts in them? 17. That's all. How many parts does an internal combustion engine have? Hundreds. And an electric car doesn't have oil or water or fluid of any type, really, except for grease to lubricate moving parts. Think of all the things that you don't have to fool with. You don't have to maintain. You don't have to build. They basically put these electric cars on what they call a skateboard. And it basically is, well, it's a skateboard, okay? It's a frame with 4 wheels. And then you slap whatever you want to on it. So you can spend more money on cool designs and snazzy interiors. So they are the future because they're going to be cheaper. They'll get the whole power grid thing straightened out, hopefully sooner than later. But Tesla sold $100,000 car worth $100,000 Model 3s to Hertz Rental Car. Unbelievable. I'd love to get the commission check on that sale. UFOs. You know I love to talk about UFOs. And to me, they're interesting. Now, do they exist? Sure they do. As I've said before, though, who knows what they are? Nobody knows what they are. But when the mainstream media guys start talking about them, that's when you start listening. And one of the guys who talks about them quite often is Fox News, Tucker Carlson. Now, I don't watch Tucker Carlson. I don't have anything against him. He's fine. I just don't watch many news programs on television. But Tucker Carlson, who is a mainstream news guy, okay, talks about UFOs. Now, is it just a ratings ploy? Maybe. But he's interested in it, and he has guys like Lou Elizondo and other UFO experts on. Tom Rogan has these guys on a semi-regular basis. So when guys like him are taking time to report, there's more smoke, folks, which means there's got to be a fire. Last but not least, it's raining in California. Now, it's a good thing because they've had a long drought. The reservoirs are at record lows. The fires, they had lots of fires this summer. And the rains usually come sometimes as early as October, usually not till November, maybe even December. But the rains have come early this year, and they've come big. So I'm thinking to myself, well, this is a good thing because that basically puts out all the fires. Northern and Central California, they had anywhere from 5 to 10 inches of rain in the last couple of days. So any fires that were left are gone. Fire season's over. Fires are out. Reservoirs are filling up. So everybody's happy, right? Wrong. Now there's mudslides. Now there's flooding. Now there's this. Now there's that. I love California. And one of the best things about California is the wonderful weather. There's no humidity. There's not much rain, usually. The topography is beautiful, the mountains, the hills, etc. But much of what makes California wonderful and why so many people live there is because of that weather. It's not muggy. It's not humid. It doesn't rain all the time and keep things wet and green. They get dry and brown, and then they burn. But here's the rains to put them out, to fill up the reservoirs, to put out the fires, and everybody's complaining. And I hesitate to say everybody, because maybe it's just the news media, and maybe they're just doing it just to try to get ratings. I'm going to go ahead and read it's from the Sacramento Bee. I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs just talking about the weather. It says, heavy rain and strong winds pounded parts of California and the Pacific Northwest over the weekend into Monday today, causing flooding, landslides, road closures, and power outages. We have that here all the time, don't we? Of course. National Weather Service meteorologist Aaron Showing says the storms along the West Coast were caused by two weather phenomena: a bomb cyclone, a quickly intensifying low-pressure system bringing strong winds in the Pacific Northwest, and an atmospheric river, a narrow band of moisture that was dousing California with moderate to heavy rainfall. Now, just the terms, bomb cyclone and atmospheric river, are bizarre. Let's continue with the story. Storms known as bomb cyclones can form as a result of a warm air mass and a cold air mass colliding. That's according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. For a storm to be labeled a bomb cyclone, its atmospheric pressure needs to fall at least 24 millibars over 24 hours. That's according to a spokesman at NOAA. The bomb cyclone that hit the West Coast was starting to weaken as it moved onshore, Mr. Showing said, but is bringing gusty winds to the coast, particularly in Washington State and Oregon. Rain, meanwhile, was dampening large chunks of the central and northern California coast. AccuWeather forecasters say some areas of California could get more than a month's worth of precipitation in a day. They caution that rain in the mountainous parts of Southern California could lead to localized debris flows, mudslides, rapid rises of creeks and rivers. Okay, I think Sacramento got 5 inches of rain, which is a lot. Don't get me wrong. But a month's worth of rain in California can be as much as 2 or 3 inches. You got 2 or 3 inches of rain and you're complaining? Again, maybe it's just news is, what do I want to say? Dog bites man isn't news. Man bites dog is news. But if man isn't biting dog, maybe you need to jazz it up a bit. I tend to think that maybe all this rain in California has been jazzed up a bit. For months, I've been hearing not enough rain, not enough rain, not enough rain. Then you hear too much rain. That's just the way it is, I guess. Okay, let's get to the meat of the podcast, the wild, wild west. The trophy wife and I hadn't been on many vacations with this whole COVID mess. So we decided it was about time. And actually, the whole COVID-19 has been a difficulty for, I'm going to go ahead and say everybody's life. If not everybody, most everybody's life. It's just made things more difficult. I mean, restaurants were either closed or even recently modified, at least, the way you have to get into restaurants. Schools, workplaces, they've changed in many instances. All kinds of travel restrictions, especially airplanes. They've all changed with COVID-19. I like to think that one day it's going to go away, but I don't know when, and neither do you, and neither does anybody. Hopefully sooner than later. But I can tell you this, and I talked about this on previous podcasts. I got, my trophy wife and I both got our second jab of the Moderna vaccine on the 5th of April. Okay. 2 weeks later, because that's when they said you were good, the 19th of April, we got on an airplane and flew to Sarasota, Florida. It was time for vacation. Got back from vacation. Shortly thereafter, we opened the pool. We had the pool open. Actually, we swam in that pool through October the 11th, if you can believe that, because of the warm weather, and we do have a heater in the pool. In July, We went on a long weekend to Bentonville, Arkansas. One of our